Music from Macklemore and Ryan Lewis, the song Wings from The Heist here on the afternoon show. Kevin Cole with you, KEXP Seattle, and joining me right now in the live space, in the performance space, an artist that co-wrote that song and worked with Macklemore and Ryan Lewis and tons of other artists, and now has his solo debut out, Awake at the Bottom of the Ocean. It is Andrew Joslyn. Welcome to KEXP.
Thank you for having me, Kevin.
It is great to have you here. The new album is fantastic and
Thank you.
Incredibly ambitious.
Yeah, I would say so.
And we're going to talk about that, but man, I don't know if I've seen this room this full.
Yeah.
There's so many musicians in here. Do you mind, for the sake of our listeners and for the benefit of all of you who are here this afternoon, introducing the band?
Absolutely. So just for people that don't know, I'm a orchestral composer, director, producer, and I have to bring a little army with me wherever I go. So on cello, I have Eli Weinberger, viola, Seth May Patterson. Accompanying me on violin is Alina Toe. On piano is Michael Ocharuk. On clarinet is John Benephile. Stand-up bass is Abby Blackwell. And on drums is Andrew Rudd. And I have a couple of special guests along the way.
Yeah, we will talk about the album, and you have featured vocalists, a handful, that are joining us here this afternoon as well. So why don't we start out with the song now?
Yep.
With one of our vocalists.
Yeah. So this is Will Jordan, and the song is called Plastic Heaven.
Great. And again, welcome to all of you. Thanks for being here this afternoon. It's Andrew Joslyn and a small army here at KEXP.
Connecting all these dots, still wishing for that perfect moment. We are never happy. Those people on my television, airbrushed and flawless renditions, so happy in a modern moment. I won't ever know them, 'cause we're all living for that royal grace, that special place, that plastic heaven. We're all dreaming of that social status, human madness, obsessed with others' love. Fame is called the ficklest of the fools, but we'd all feast if we could fall to our baser emotions. We aren't ever perfect. I'll just let my followers wash my feet while broadcasting my own conceit. Thank God we're all so honest. How did this ever happen? 'Cause we're all living for that royal grace, that special place, that plastic heaven. We're all dreaming of that social status, human madness, so sad and all alone. All alone.
Xander Joslyn live on the afternoon show. Will Jordan on that track, who has a songwriting credit on the monster hit, the Nicki Minaj Rihanna track, Fly. That in and of itself would be a crazy story, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Are you? I don't know if you're talking to me or what's going on. But
I was being the golf commentator
Right
between vocalists here, but sure. Sure. How did that come to be?
Oh, my gosh. 2010.
Yeah.
I was broke. I was working as an engineer in a recording studio in downtown Tacoma, and I got a phone call finding out that I had a baby on the way, and
You're like, I got to get serious.
yeah, my daughter's mom said, "Don't give up. Give it 3 months." Within 3 months, we got a phone call from Tommy Rodham and found out that we had a song on the album, and it changed my life.
Wow. Were you like writing songs and sending demos out?
Oh my gosh, I was writing terrible songs. I wrote 2 good songs in like 3 months. Everything else was trash, and I thought I was a genius. I thought I was doing the most amazing things ever. So later on, I realized how much of a blessing that was, because you never know what can happen, especially coming out of like Tacoma. Like nothing, as far as I knew, nothing came out of Hilltop, Tacoma, Washington.
Yeah.
So that was like a game changer for sure.
That in and of itself is incredibly inspiring, right?
Thank you. Yeah.
You hear of folks that make connections in just crazy ways now. I know
Right.
Moby was telling me once that he found vocalists for his album going back a ways to the MySpace era,
Wow,
just checking out random vocalists, like
Yeah.
not even just people who were just singing, and found really cool vocalists and got them in. Andrew, we'll talk about vocalists and how you hooked up with everybody as we move on here. But again, you've got your solo debut out, Awake at the Bottom of the Ocean, a bunch of different guest vocalists. You're doing some shows coming up. You've got a show. You're going to be playing Upstream.
Yep.
On Thursday, May 11th. And then on Friday, June 2nd at the Triple Door.
Yeah, the full army's back. So
Sweet.
It's going to be a vinyl release show. So finally getting around to printing vinyl of the album, a little deluxe package, and then and then in July will be officially releasing the second feature film score that I've worked on for a film called Hickok.
Yeah. Is that as in Wild Bill Hickok?
Yeah, definitely in Wild Bill Hickok. So it was really fun. I got to dig through all the old Western music of Ennio Morricone and,
sweet.
310 to Yuma, Once Upon a Time in the West, all of it. So.
Since we're talking about that, I mean, you're a composer, you're an orchestrator, and a film score. You've done 2 Hollywood movies this year.
Yep.
How much of an inspiration are those guys, like Ennio?
Oh, a huge inspiration. I would say this album itself just harvests so much from the cinematic world. And, like I even fondly look at some of these and I'm like, yeah, this could have been in that film score, or this should have been in a James Bond flick, And like for me, it's like, looking at John Barry, Ennio Morricone, Alexander Desplat, all these different composers, like there's little bits and pieces of them all over the album.
Yeah.
So for me, like, I mean, everyone's like, what's the first album you got? I got a mixtape from my mom for 1965 International Film Festival. It's a little tape cassette, and it's like all the music, like Who Shot the Piano Player, Le Dolce Vita, like all these, like, Ennio Morricone and Bernard Herrmann, and like all these other film composers. So that was like my first step into like, ooh, this is music that's really cool.
That's pretty cool. Now, at that point in time, I mean, you started playing violin at like the age of 3 or 5 or something crazy, right? And then you were studying composition and music, so you were already musical when you got that tape?
Well, yes. Like I started playing violin. It was something that was impressed upon me by my parents.
Yes.
And I was like funneled into the classical world, and I didn't quite feel like I was the right fit entirely, because I was always kind of wanting to improvise, or I'd do stuff that was very non-traditional on the violin. And, I was more drawn to like blues and fiddle music and Cajun and like Celtic stuff. I joined a rock band in college. So for me, composition, like I was always composing, but it was just improvising and just like stupid ideas. And I just never recorded anything. But I think it was pretty recently, within the last 5 years, that I really like focused and was like, I'm gonna really give composing and scoring and looking at the theory and everything a real go. So it's still pretty fresh, but all the ideas are there.
That's super interesting, given your background in studying composition and stuff so early and collaborating, dating back to 2008-ish when you started working with Macklemore and Ryan Lewis.
Yeah.
And I'm sure just nonstop collaboration since then.
Yeah, all over the place.
That you're saying you only really kind of took it seriously in terms of writing stuff down and scoring 5 years ago.
Right.
That's pretty fascinating.
It's interesting because it's like beforehand I just looked at it as I just want to play with friends. I never like sat down like pen and paper and I'm gonna figure out exactly what's going on chordal wise. It's like I'll walk into a studio and I would fondly call myself a one-man orchestra. I would just play all these string instruments, and because of the magic of the studio, you can just multi-track yourself. So I'd walk in and just on a Macklemore track, it's like 40 of me.
Yeah.
Or if it's like, like I just worked with Jeremy Enoch, it was pretty much that. It was just like another 40 of me. Here's all your stems, violins, violas, cellos, like everything. And I never like sat down and was like, I'm going to just notate this out. It just kind of flowed through the instrument through me. And it was like, it just seemed like second nature.
Yeah. So now when you don't have to multi-track everything yourself or get to play with friends and have your own solo album, what's the difference when you hear the music, when you hear like everybody playing at the same time versus piecing it together?
Well,
is that a rush?
Yeah, it is. It's so weird because it's like this album was a Petri dish album. It was conceived in the studio. It was like I just sat down and I like this melody line. I'm going to commit to it, and then just wrote a song around it. And then all of a sudden hearing them come to life, and then, because it's a lot of bands, they'll play test their songs live. They'll be like, does this work? Oh, cool, they're jiving to this, great. I didn't have that experience because I can't like, like I could do the Andrew Bird thing where I'm like multi-tracking myself live with loops and everything, but you get kind of stuck in a certain chord progression. Like I really wanted to be modulating, having fun, really kind of changing around melodies and have you can already tell there's a wealth of themes and variations that are happening. And having everyone be able to help realize all these weird threads of color that are dancing around my head, it's like, it is an absolute rush.
That's cool. How much of that happens when you have an idea, you maybe write a melody line or you write different parts and pieces, and do those pieces and parts evolve as people play them and maybe ideas emerge? Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that's kind of fun. This project was a long, long journey towards letting go. Because it's like an arranger and a composer, you notate everything. Like, especially with vocals. Like, I wrote all these vocals, and I had very specific melody lines, and I was like, no, you're going to sing it this way. And, like, Shelby Earle, who's going to be the next guest singer, I sang this whole song an octave lower. And when she came in, she's like, I can't sing that low, and it doesn't sound right. And it's like, well, let's try it an octave up and see what happens. Yeah. And it was and then in the magic of the studio, it's like you kind of, this word sounds better if you sing it this way, or if you deliver it this way, or you enunciate this way. And it was like, I had to let go.
Yeah, that was a challenge at first.
It was. But you rely on other people to bring their best foot forward, I'm not going to pretend like I'm, a super trained vocalist. So I'd rather stand back and be like, I'm going to let you have the floor and tell me what works,
When you learn to let go and trust, it's amazing how some of your ideas become better.
Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of music is it's like, you can listen to someone strumming a guitar all you want, but it's like if they let go and let the rest of the musicians around them help build that beautiful soundscape, it's like it's music. It's supposed to be listened together and made together. Yeah.
So we have a room full of musicians. Let's have some more music.
Yeah.
It's Andrew Joslyn live on the afternoon show, KEXP. We've got Shelby Earle on this next track.
Yep.
Hey, Shelby.
This is a song called Icarus, and it's about drug addiction and Hollywood.
Seem to be someone to lose their head, even in the worst of times, with all those best of
Andrew Joslyn live on the afternoon show. Shelby Earle on that track, Icarus, and it's from Andrew's debut solo album, Awake at the Bottom of the Ocean. That song inspired by drug addiction and Hollywood. What are some of the other inspirations?
Oh, for that one?
No,
or
on
just
the album.
For the record? Well,
does each song start with its own separate idea?
yeah, absolutely. I think I have the most backwards way of writing. I start with a title.
Really?
And then
that's usually the hardest thing to come up with for a lot of people.
Yeah. The very, very first song on the record was called I Should Have Said Goodbye Before I Met You. And that sentence said everything.
And how did that stick in your head? Where'd you
You know, it was about a past relationship, and I was in the living room packing boxes, you know, after moving out, and I was like looking around, and I was like, Jesus, this is nuts. And I wanted to write about that experience, and that sentence stuck in my head for almost 2 years.
Wow.
And then finally I was like, I'm gonna write a song about that.
Do you consider yourself pretty verbal?
Yeah, so I did music forever, and then when I got to college, I freaked out, and I was like, I'm not gonna make money at this. I'm not gonna have a career. What am I doing? So then I became an English lit major. Perfect backup plan. And then, you know, started getting into like Charles Dickens and Hemsworth and like just, or Wordsworth, all these different poets and writers, and J.D. Salinger makes appearances on the record. I have a reference to Emily Dickinson in Plastic Heaven. And, you know, there's a song called Holden's Birds Fly South, and that's a reference to Catcher in the Rye. So for me, words mean everything, absolutely.
Do they kind of get stuck in your head, or do you write them down in some kind of journal and then refer to it later? And then
Both.
Yeah.
Like sometimes there will be, I already have a song I already have a title for a song in the next record called Death by Gold-Plated Lungs. And it's about my uncle who used to be a jeweler.
Yeah.
And he just, after inhaling chemicals and gold over the years, it's like that sentence is everything. So now all of a sudden, my job is just to color that world and breathe life into it, you know. With the lyrics and everything else and the actual message, it's like the song will tell me as I write.
Yeah.
You know, and that was the weirdest thing. A lot of these songs, I'll go into it and I'm like, I don't want to write about my ex-girlfriend, and then all of a sudden I am, and I'm like, God, why? No, I don't want to be doing this. But it's like the song, it's weird. This experience, because my whole career has been collaborating with other artists and coloring their worlds with arrangements and orchestral stuff. So when I actually had to write about my own world, it was like really daunting and really terrifying. Because I'm all of a sudden like, oh God, I have stories to tell, and these are a lot of skeletons in my closet I don't really want to be talking about.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask about that. First, I just want to mention some of the artists you've worked with for listeners who might not know: Macklemore and Ryan Lewis, David Bazan, Mark Lanigan, Odessa, Chris Orlowski, Augustines, Judy Collins, Suzanne Vega, my goodness, Tuatara. I mean, it's a big list, and it goes on and on. So obviously you were coloring some of their visions and ideas.
Right.
At a certain point, though, you were like, I need to do this myself.
Yeah, when you work in an auxiliary capacity like that, you're always kind of beholden to someone else's vision, and which is fine. Like, I was so used to being like, I'm going to just help you reach your goal.
And that's got to be really fun and really satisfying, right?
I mean, a majority of the time playing a string instrument, you show up in the 9th inning and everyone's like, oh my God, my track sounds amazing now with strings, thank you. And it's like, I just held notes for like 2 minutes, thanks. It's like, it's really gratifying, but sometimes it's just like really simple. But then, a lot of the time working with like hip hop or rock, pop, whatever, even heavy metal bands, there's points where they tell you what they want, and ultimately it's their say. Like, there was an artist I worked with, I wrote this beautiful orchestral arrangement, and it was just a piano and a singer, and ultimately we both agreed that the piano and the singer is all it needed.
Yeah.
And it was so hard, but I was like, I had to put my ego aside, and I was like, that's what the song needed, not what I wanted. So ultimately, looking at that, I was like, I need to write something that's my world, and I needed to have some skin in the game too. Because it's like, when I'm working with other artists, I can kind of back off and be like, well, if the album succeeds or not, it's sort of on them, Like, I'm just helping color their world, But like, I never really could like walk up and say like, this is what I have to say, and this is my This is what I can do.
Yeah, you become
So,
vulnerable in a whole bunch of different ways. One, just the success, failure, right? And then also just expressing who you are and opening yourself up to the extent you write that way, right?
Right. Yeah. It's very hard on the sleeve. Like I don't pull my punches whatsoever. Like everything's pretty. It's honest.
So what surprises me as an artist that's been a composer and an arranger and an orchestrator is that the lyrics or the words came first.
Yeah. It sort of. It's the title comes first, but then everything else is just, it kind of just fills in weirdly. Like sometimes I would kind of joke that sometimes my writing kind of seems like a Sudoku puzzle. Mm-hmm. So where I'm like sitting there and I'm like, I'll write the melody line of what I want the vocal to be, and then I'm kind of like, okay, I have 9 syllables. What words fit into that framework? So I'm like, she's gone to California, or what? I'm like trying to fit. And
that sounds pretty fun.
It's this weird mental exercise where I'm just sitting there and like I'm doing this reverse like engineering, and another song we're gonna play tonight called "Spinning Wheels." Actually, the vocal and the piano line that's in the chorus was the first thing.
Wow.
I didn't even have a title for the song, so I can't say that the title's always what starts it off, but sometimes just a quick little musical idea, and that's any of the songwriters in this room can speak to. Sometimes it's just that little spark that's, catalyzes the entire process.
Well, since we're talking about words, how about an instrumental song?
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe you had the title first.
No, this is, so this one's called She's Gone to California, and it's, I have a feeling that, there's a lot of people in, Seattle that just go to California in hopes and dreams that their career will be made, and that's where the real future is. And I sort of believe that, but I also believe that it's like, I want to believe that Seattle, you can really make a true living as an artist.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and let's hope so. We've got an incredibly vibrant scene. On the journey of a lot of artists, you need to move away to find and figure out that you can do what you want to do and need to do at home.
Yeah, but I didn't want to do the whole Robert Graves mythology of like leaving home and finding it and stuff. It's like I'd rather, I like the alchemist kind of thing where ultimately your goal is to cultivate your love and your life at home in your world. And I don't know. That's what this song speaks to. I don't want to find it out there. Yeah. It's like I want to enrich my world here.
You got to bypass that step.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
It's Andrew Joslyn live on the afternoon show. So beautiful. Andrew Joslyn live on the afternoon show. I'm glad we talked about what that song was about because you could really feel the sadness and sense of melancholy in the story that you told, She's Gone to California. The track, it's from Andrew's debut solo album, Awake at the Bottom of the Ocean, and celebrating the release of the album with a couple shows, playing it upstream with the Passenger String Quartet on Thursday, May 11th, and then at the Triple Door on June 2nd. Was that the album release show?
Yeah, well, it's the vinyl release show.
Or vinyl release show.
I'm trying to milk it as much as I can.
as you must. Now you mentioned that you scored a upcoming feature film, Hickok, with Luke Helmsworth.
Luke Hemsworth. Chris Christopherson, Trace Atkins. There's a bunch of others.
That's cool. And you did one earlier this year, American Violence.
Yep.
So for you, how does writing for a film differ than some of, the music on your debut solo here?
Yeah, it's the interesting thing when you're scoring to film is there's so many weird rules that you have to adhere to, especially in a narrative form. Like you are the color for the world completely. You know, when you watch a film without any music, it's almost unnerving.
Yeah.
How bland and colorless it is.
Yeah, it's totally different.
It's totally different. So
music packs the emotional punch.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, it's like it was a huge process of learning of like you can't forecast too much. Like you have to kind of play to the audience's emotions, but you also play to the actor's emotions.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, you have a character that knows that their child is about to die, but you can't forecast it too much. You can sort of hint at it, but so it's like when I'm working with a director, it's like, I need a sense of hope but darkness. It's like, well, what does that mean? Like, how do you communicate that in a musical form? So it's almost like I'm taking words and words and emotions and really, really trying to distill them to the finite moment of musical expression. It's a really bizarre process. Like I'm still getting used to it. But I feel like I already kind of was on that path with this record. I was just taking those little moments and threads in my own head, in my own life, and, coloring them. So it's like, She's Gone to California. It is a sobering, very, dark, but it is kind of hopeful, too. And that's partly the melody lines. It's partly the harmonies. It's the instruments and how it swells, So... it all kind of, it's all hand in hand. It's just that the bizarre thing is, it's, ultimately I'm still beholden to the director, and there's a lot of stuff I wrote for that film, and I'm like, this is awesome, and they're like, nope, it's not gonna work.
Yeah, well, you get to store that music away.
Yeah, recycle it for other stuff.
Time. So in terms of this record. You wrote these songs. Is this the first time, you really kind of wrote all the songs yourself? You wrote all the lyrics yourself, and then you matched the vocalist with the song.
Yeah.
And you've got great vocalists on here. Will Jordan, who we've heard, Shelby Earle, Eric Anderson, who we're going to hear in a sec from Cataldo, Susie Sun, Audra Boo, Billy McCarthy from Augustine's, and Mark Lanigan. So did you write a song, you finish a song, and then you're like, man, Lanigan would sound good on this?
Yeah.
Or
Plastic Heaven was a great example. I had no idea who was going to sing it. I tried to sing the demo, and I was auto-tuning myself and just being like, oh my God, this is really hard. Yeah. Is it going to be a female that's going to sing this? Is it going to be a dude? I couldn't quite figure out some of those songs. I was just like, I also wanted to find people that embodied the message,
right?
Too, when it finally got to the point.
It's got to be believable.
Right. It's like, it's like I felt like I was casting the actors that were ultimately going to be playing the lead role.
It's a cool way to look at it, yeah.
And it's mantra for a struggling artist, for example. It had to be Billy McCarthy. It was almost written for him because that song, the whole kind of journey of it became it started from a conversation I had with him when he was still in the Augustines before they broke up, and they were trying to figure out is life as a musician worth it? Is it, we're going through all this change and we're away from our families and touring really is hard. So
yeah, I totally see that. Just the title alone fits his story.
Yeah, exactly. So it was it had to be Billy because when I gave the song to him, he's like, yeah, totally, I got this.
Wow.
So, and same thing with like Audra Boo. She had gone through a house fire. So like when she sang it, she got emotional in the studio. She started crying, and I was like, yes. Like, it's like really terrible to say, but it was like perfect. You know, it caught the emotion, and it's like, because anyone can just write a song and you can kind of saccharine your way through it, and it's like, cool. But I really, really wanted to get at something deeper. Like I wanted to get at the human experience.
Yeah, I don't know if Madonna ever cried.
Maybe, I don't know. I can't speak to that.
Random thought.
But you know, it's like I hear a story like Adele, like will get herself to the point where she's just crying and just so emotionally wrapped up in the songs, and it's like, you know, I'm not trying to copy that approach, but I absolutely adhere to that philosophy. It's like,
yeah, totally.
The voice is what delivers the message, and the voice is the most important part. If you're not convinced that the story's there from the vocalist, it's not there. You don't have a strong enough song.
Okay, so Eric Anderson from Cataldo singing this next song. What was it about Eric's voice and this song that made you connect them?
Well, the song "Spinning Wheels" is about the struggle of all relationships. So we all are trying to avoid this entropy that happens in love. You know, with Cosmo, everyone's like, how do you renew your sex life? How do you do this? And all these self-help books about how do you save a marriage, and you know, all these marriage counseling, all this kind of stuff. And I'd gone through my fair share of relationships and trying to find what love means. And yes, that's, you know, it's such a loaded topic. But I really wanted to get at that raw reality. And a song that kind of inspired me for this was Death Cab for Cutie's Little Tiny Vessels. Like, it was bitter and really sad, but honest. And with Eric's voice and with his songwriting, it made sense. We sat down and talked about the concept of the song. He even helped with a lot of the writing too. Like, I gave him the song, I had my initial draft, and he's like, well, why don't we try this word instead? You know, you have it spread out like a loom. Why don't we say like darkest moon? It fits a little bit more in this, you know. And he's also a fellow like literature, nerd. So it worked great. You know, I mean, we even have our hair combed the exact same way. So
I was telling everybody I was going to tell everyone on air that we met at the barber. Radio listeners, we have the same haircut. So
yeah. What did we agree upon? Soto?
Yeah, Soto, head shop.
Head
Martin,
shop?
shout out.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Sweet.
I've never been there, but apparently we met there.
All right, it's Andrew Joslyn, Eric Anderson on vocals on this track, Spinning Wheels, and it's from Andrew's solo debut, Awake at the Bottom of the Ocean.
Stop to think about us if we had just started out. 'Cause innocent and callow is not how I feel now. No storybook ending, requisite in plain, just a twisted variation where love begins to wane. But let's keep rolling this barrel uphill. This shouldn't be so hard. But you don't wanna give up on me. Don't wanna give up on you. We're better together, greater than the sum of our parts. But we're just spinning wheels in the dark. We always end at the start. Cut each other deeply in the darkness of this room. These little imperfections hang like the darkest moon. our spokes manically turning, throwing off the mud. The earth will crack and harden until there's another flood. Ooh, but let's keep rolling this barrel of gold. This shouldn't be so hard, but you don't wanna give up on me. Give up on you. We're in this together, even though no one likes the odds. But we're just spinning wheels in the dark. We always end at the start. We always end at the start. Now we're back to the start. Greater than the sum of our parts, still just spinning wheels in the dark.
Spinning Wheels, Eric Anderson on vocals. It's Andrew Joslyn live on KEXP. Awake at the Bottom of the Ocean is the solo debut album. Andrew, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's great having you, and thanks to Eric and Shelby Earle and Will Jordan on vocals, and to all the musicians here in the room this afternoon. Appreciate it. Thank you much. And huge thanks to Jim, Justin, Alaia on video, Dave on photos, Kevin Suggs on sound, Matt and Ann on board opping, Nancy and Jennifer on hospitality, and to all the donors who make these in-studio sessions possible. Thank you. It is the afternoon show, KEXP Seattle.
Discover new music at listener-powered KEXP.org.